Now I want to introduce a really good friend, Erin Dienst. She's going to talk about social media in Generation Z. Let's welcome her.
All right, awesome. I'm a millennial soon becoming irrelevant. We've been talking about millennials for quite a few years now, but the reality is they've moved on. They're no longer the students to whom a large portion of our ministry is devoted to. Generation Z was born on and after 1995. They're the first generation to grow up entirely native to social media, not just the internet. And they're here. About 70% of them are online globally, which sounds kind of low, but that's the highest it's ever been. And while there's not yet globally comprehensive research that give us definitively around the world what Generation Z is like, there are quite a few reports out there, and I scoured the internet and I've summarized those findings, not just from the data perspective, but how are we to respond to them. And so for the purposes of this presentation, I just want to make you aware that this should be mostly true, if not fully true for your context, though it is hard to encompass everything around the world about Gen Z in a 9-minute presentation. So if you like statistics and want to see those reports, I put them at the very end of this presentation. So you can come back to that later and enjoy more of these gifts. But Gen Z, they want you to address their needs. They live in a generation that's anxious and lonely. Social media and the internet has made them really insecure and anxious about war, terrorism, corruption, racism. They live so closely connected to all of these things. They're also really socially insecure. They've curated their identities since longer than they can remember. Sometimes they wipe their social media accounts free of everything and start over. They also have a tendency to create extra profiles to segment audiences of people in their lives. So our strategies need to take into account how are we addressing their needs for security, reassurance, and peace. Our ministry in Canada, Power to Change, started a podcast where they go over undiscussed topics in the culture. And their episode on mental health, which kind of speaks to these issues, has done really well. In addition, Gen Z also really values financial security, and this distinguishes them from millennials who are passion-oriented, willing to live with their parents to achieve their dreams. But Gen Z equates financial success with happiness, and so we need to address and validate their need and desire to succeed in their careers and in school, but we also need to offer them and point them to where true hope and reassurance can be found only in Jesus. Gen Z wants to learn, and we need to engage their curiosity. They turn to YouTube for advice on just about anything, even very random things. And they would rather watch a 3 to 5 minute video than read an article. So our ministries need to take that into account. Gen Z wants you to be authentic and personal. They see up to 5,000 ads per day, and they can sniff out anything that seems salesman-like or inauthentic. They'd rather see real people, not just royalty-free photos. And they want to know that they're talking to a real human and not even a macro influencer. Kim Kardashian and these big influencers are going to be less and less influential to Gen Z moving forward. It's now become okay to break the rules about the length of captions on social media if those posts are coming from a heartfelt place, if they're well written, and a person is expressing vulnerability. One way people in our ministry are applying this principle, Boiling Waters, the brand in the Philippines that our ministry is working behind, they sometimes write their posts directly to their personas. They say, "Dear Mark," or "Dear Christine." And that sounds funny, like it's limiting everyone who's not Mark and Christine from enjoying this post. But people are self-centered, and they have a way of still reading it, intending it for themselves, and they see that it's intended for a person, for a human. Then they go and they tag all of their friends named Mark and Christine in the posts. And these posts tend to do really well. The exercise for their team of volunteers and content creators, this has helped them stay personal in all the content that they have to create. Gen Z wants you to care about what they care about. What social movements do the young people in your context value? From fighting, addressing issues of equality to the environment, Gen Z resembles millennials on their passion to see change in the world. We need to think about how do we address and meet people where they're at on these topics in normal life. Chances are it's not effective to dismiss the things that they care really strongly about. A quote that's resonated with me from the former Anglican Archbishop of South Africa, Desmond Tutu, said, "If you are neutral in situations of injustice, if you have chosen the side of the oppressor, if an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse and you say that you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality." And this is a challenging thought. For brands in this new world with Gen Z, silence is sometimes interpreted as siding with oppressors. And those of us in this context where traditionally as a ministry, we've not engaged with current events or politics. But the data and what Gen Z is saying is that they want to talk about these issues. And those issues matter as they think about faith and religion and who Jesus really is. If you look at the media that Gen Z consumes, they're even going with these topics as well. One of the main themes of Black Panther was you can't influence the world living in isolation. And so our ministries need to sit in this place. Where does our message, their desire to talk about these issues connect? We care about justice, restoration, diversity. How can we meet people in that territory? And some of us will need to sit really hard where we actually do as a ministry need to take a stand on certain issues. Do you actually know anyone who's in a Gen Z persona? And that goes beyond maybe some of your own kids who might be a different kind of breed. But Gen Z wants you to care about their voice. I really recommend that you find 2 people in this demographic to mentor you. Amelia is a student in Russia, and she is mentoring me in all things Gen Z. She shows me what vloggers to follow. She gives me comments on what's cool for a young person in Russia, and it's been a blast to work on a few video projects with her. So this exercise is highly beneficial. Invite them to contribute to or give feedback on your work. Finally, Gen Z really wants to be entertained. They're tired of the negative content online, and they need to have fun. Where can you show humor that's understandable when it's appropriate? Millennials were all about communicating with text. Gen Z is all about images and video. GIFs and emoji are their love language. Finally, in closing, when I was in student ministry, I learned that we always need to be reaching the first years. Today's students are Gen Z, and Generation Alpha is right around the corner. And we need to care about their needs, their anxiety and frustration, their desire to see goodness, beauty, and truth in a way that makes sense to them. We know what they truly have is found in Jesus, but we need to be a part of making that connection for them in a captivating way. And in the words of Ariana Grande, thank you, next.